The other day I went on a hike, and I couldn't help but notice the similarities between hiking and work. My name is Sean Curran. I make these videos because I enjoy learning just as much as I enjoy creating, and making this video allows me to do both. So in this video, I want to understand and conceptualize the career journey using hiking as a metaphor. I've condensed this down into about 6 main steps, starting with step 1. The first step is in the beginning. The first similarity is within the intention. Because when you start a hike, the goal is not to see the most miraculous views at the beginning of the hike. You know that those are likely going to be preserved to the middle or the end of the hike. But the real intention is to get closer to the top than when you started. And what's so beautiful about the career journey is that there's no right place to start. We've seen billionaires that started in completely different places. We've seen them start in different countries. They didn't necessarily have to go to Ivy League schools. There's just many different ways of going about getting to the top, whatever that may be. One thing I really did take notice to was how different parts of the hike were steeper than others. And I want to compare this to different points in a career that are going to be more strenuous than others. This could be working 65 to 70 to 80 hours a week during a particular season of the year, or a set of years, or it could be doing a master's while also working full-time. These are going to be the most strenuous parts of the career, but they're also going to put you closer to the top than somebody who is just walking on flat land. And after that strenuous climb, you may notice that there's some different people around you. And this is where we connect into point 2. The second way that hiking is very similar to work is through this idea of mentorship and asking great questions. Because more than likely, the person that you're asking has climbed the mountain that you're climbing before. Whether it be in the same industry, it could be in relationships, it could be in navigating anything professionally. There's somebody who has climbed the same mountain as you are climbing right now and is willing and able to offer you insight if you ask. Because they're gonna see you climbing that mountain. You're churning up, you're working 60 hours a week, you may be pursuing a master's, whatever it may be. If they sense your ambition and curiosity, they're more than likely going to try and help you. And this is what I noticed along my hike. And after taking the advice of a mentor, you're gonna find yourself at a roadblock where you may not be able to take their advice anymore. And this leads me into step 3. Step 3 is probably the most unique of these characteristics that make up this metaphor. And it's probably unique to the hike that I went on. But there was a complete blockage where a door, a gate, basically blocked off the path to the rest of the hike. And I thought it was so interesting and applicable, particularly to the entrepreneurial journey. What I see from what I read and what I watch, a lot of entrepreneurs face this roadblock where they get to a certain point and they can no longer progress. And that's when they decide to move on to a greater opportunity. You can also find yourself doing this in the job that you're in. Maybe you find yourself working at a company where the professional development, or maybe it's the money, whatever it may be, is no longer satisfying your needs and not getting you any closer to the top. When that occasion occurs, that's when it's time to make your way around. And this kind of connects into step 4. Step 4, in the way that hiking is similar to work, is not far from point 3, but it's different in a way. Part 4 is around going off the beaten path. And one may think that going off the beaten path necessarily means that you must be an entrepreneur. You're going into starting your own business. But I'd like to push against this idea because I believe that there are certain companies that are inherently entrepreneurial, where you can utilize entrepreneurial skills like creativity and innovation while still remaining an employee. This is the idea of intrapreneurship as opposed to entrepreneurship. So regardless if you decide to go on your own, completely forge your own path in entrepreneurship, or do something that's never been done within a company, in the form of intrapreneurship, there's different ways of going off the beaten path that can get you closer to the top within your career or respective industry. And it's fair to say that going off the beaten path is a little bit more difficult than going on the path that's already been paved. And this is where step 4 leads into step 5. The fifth way that hiking is similar to work is probably one of my favorites, and it continues with this analogy of going off the beaten path. And whether this is through entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship is less important, but the point I'm going to make here is that to get to that top 1%, which is essentially the peak, involves more time, effort, energy, and risk than any other point along the journey. And that's also why the people in that top 1% are willing to do what 99% of people aren't. And it's probably because those bottom 99% people are rational and they understand diminishing marginal returns. So they don't want to go all the way up because they can max out at, say, 2/3 and call it from there. But the people who climb all the way to the top are just doing something different. Or perhaps they're doing something more than everybody else. So I'm going to lead this into the final point, which comes from Naval Ravikant. And his claim is that perhaps the people who are trying to go all the way to the top may only reach 2/3 not because of their work, but because of the opportunity vehicle that they're in. So they have to do something else instead. So this is where I'm going to lead into point number 6. The sixth and final way that hiking is similar to work comes from Naval. And this was on a podcast where Naval said that in order to get to 2/3 or 4/5 of the way up the mountain is pretty incredible to be at that point. And it's still a really awesome view, but it's not the top. And that's not necessarily a reflection of your own efforts, but it could be a reflection of the opportunity vehicle that you're in, or the industry that you're in. So what Naval is saying is that in order for you to get to the top, you can't walk the path that you're on. It doesn't lead to the top. So what you have to do is go back to the base of the mountain and take a new path on the way up, which a lot of people aren't willing to do. So to quickly recap on the 6 main points that make hiking a great metaphor for work, we touched on the beginning, or the intention that starts a hike, mentorship, and how that could lead to roadblocks where you must go off the beaten path and adapt, and then leading to diminishing marginal returns, right? You're at that top 1% and why most people don't get there. And then we finished with Naval's analogy of climbing down the mountain to get back up to the top. But those are the 6 main points that I have for you today. If there's any other ones that you thought of, feel free to leave them in the comments, but that's all for me today. So I'm gonna go sleep. I hope you get your 8 hours tonight too, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.